Renny Show is brought to you by Johnston Group, Vittorio Rossi, Trans-Canada Brewing, Lou Ferlin, Cambrian Credit Union, and Homefield.
Hello, everybody. I'm Sean Reynolds from Sportsnet, about to be joined by Ken Weep from Sportsnet. Together, we are Kenny and Renny, and this is the Kenny and Renny post-game show after a game that I think a lot of people are going to be frustrated by. So you'll notice that I've got the canoe on the wall. I don't know how I didn't notice this during the last show, but I'm surprised no one tried to hop in the canoe for this show and try and show a little bit more effort than we were seeing from the Jets, at least to the start of that game. That's one of those Jets falling asleep periods that just absolutely drives me nuts. They come into a game against a team you want to make sure you have a good start against, and you don't get it. But in the end, long story short, they get out of that 1-0. I don't think it's the biggest deal, but I'll tell you, we're at the live show right now, and I'll give you a show of the room here. What a room this was today. Give yourselves a round of applause. This was a fun room today. We're just hitting our stride with these things. Absolutely love them. And I have to say, someone summed it up perfectly. They were talking earlier on in the game about like what Jets fans are at the core, and it was shown off in this room today. Just absolute frustration. And you should have heard the Bronx cheer in here when the Jets finally put a shot on net in that first period. There's just this frustration, and everyone's just kind of like clenching, and everyone's so upset. And then all of a sudden they score, and everyone forgets it, and everything's great in Jets land, right? It's just, it's so typically Jets fans, and it's great. It's a ton of fun to watch it. I love that I got to watch it here. I'll say this about this game with the Winnipeg Jets is I like that game. I hate to say it. People are going to be frustrated by it. I like that game. I don't think that's a bad game. Where we saw the Jets come from in their last game against the Anaheim Ducks, this is them, for the most part, playing a proper game, but not showing very well. The game before that, I think there's a little bit of luck involved in that and the goals that they score, and they go up against the Arizona Coyotes, and people are so like frustrated in the background. So everyone right now is thinking that I've had too many of these. That's what's happening right now. Everyone thinks I've had too many of these, and they're getting that. I'm going to tell you something. The Winnipeg Jets, I'll say what I've been saying for the longest time. Yes, the Calgary Flames won tonight. Yes, that gets shrunk down to 4 points. I have no faith in the Calgary Flames. Down the stretch, I think they'll fall apart. The Winnipeg Jets, to me, job number one has to be getting primed and ready for the playoffs. And there's a very good chance the LA Kings are a team that they're going to play in the first round of the playoffs. Now, they lose this game 4-1. It's a 3-1 game. It's an empty net goal. But for the most part, other than spotting them a 10-shot lead and a 1-0 lead, the Winnipeg Jets put themselves in a position where for a lot of that game, if you've watched a lot of LA Kings games, for a lot of that game, the Jets are pushing the play in that game. That doesn't happen a lot to the LA Kings. The Jets, someone said in here about puck luck, there's not a lot of puck luck in a game like that. There you go. There you go. They got Pat Rathwell, if you've heard of him from the chat, Dale Sawchuk. They were talking about when the Jets get puck luck, things are going to turn around. I don't know how much it is puck luck. I think it's a little bit of confidence and stuff like that. But the Winnipeg Jets in this game closed the gap in that game. If you take a look at how they play, it's a game where they could generate something. It didn't happen, and I know people want to be frustrated, and I know people want to take a look at this game and say, this is what happens to the Winnipeg Jets when they play an actual contender compared to their previous two games where they played teams below the playoff line. But I think if this is how the Jets look against an actual contender, I far prefer this to what they've looked like against actual contenders before this. I prefer what they look like in this game compared to what they look like against the New York Rangers when Connor Hellebuck has to stop 50 shots. I prefer what they look like in this game to getting pumped 4-0 by the New York Islanders in a game. This is a game that I think a couple breaks, and I don't want to be that a couple breaks guy, but I think the Jets replicate this game, and every once in a while they win this game against the LA Kings 3-2. And that's what you want, is you want a game that if you replicate it over and over again against a good team, They're going to win some, but you're going to win some. And I don't think the Jets are as far away as people think they are. I know some people look at this and they think this is every reason for us to be frustrated by the Jets and think that the Jets don't belong, and 4-1 means that they're not of the capability of those other teams. That's not what I look at in this situation. I take a look and I see the Winnipeg Jets, who didn't start the game properly. That's something that could be correctable, although let's be honest with ourselves. The Jets have tried to correct this for a long time, and they haven't done that well at it. Correcting it isn't as easy as me just saying that. But a lot of the things they needed to solve, their neutral zone, the way that they pressured, the way that they were generating enough pressure, that the LA Kings, a very good, fast team, were forced to take penalties in this game and give the Jets opportunities to finally get a power play goal. There's a lot of things in this game that I think can be taken forward for a team that, in my opinion, needs to be focusing less right now on getting over the playoff line, because I think they're over it, less on that and more on the idea of pushing their game to a place where they could have success in the playoffs. That's my take on this. For the take of the guy who really matters here tonight, we're going to bring in my main man, Ken Wiebe. And hey, oh, you should see the smile on his face, everybody. You should see the smile on his face. Don't dislocate your shoulder, patting yourself on the back there. Hey, we all love to say happy birthday to Ken. It's his actual birthday today, and we know every day of the year is Ken Wiebe's birthday, but this is an extra special one because it's his. We'll get into the guesses of how old Ken was in this room today. It's not pretty, Ken, but I just wanted to warn you before I brought you in. But hey, enough talking. It's time to bring you in. Let's bring in the man with the best music in the business. Here comes Kenny.
Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Kenny. Happy birthday to you.
Oh, thank you. You guys are very sweet. Amazing.
Ken, I'm going to tell you,
Awesome.
We have really great fans because I know you very well, and I know you don't deserve treatment like this. No doubt about it.
You also know I don't blush very easily.
Happy birthday, my friend.
Thank
Let's
you.
get right into it. I just wanted to tell you, spirited crowd, great group
Awesome.
here. This was one of the funnest of these events that I've
Good.
been a part of. Just an absolutely lightning crowd here tonight. A lot of new people. They
Amazing.
did a good job. You're missing out.
I know.
I told everyone I wanted to bake a cake just so that we could eat it in front of you and just to stick it to you because
Why
I'm a little
didn't you?
jealous of all the attention
Why
you're
didn't
getting,
you?
but that's okay. I absolutely love it. Ken,
Just a quick one here. Here's what things look like at the arena here.
There you go. There you go.
Clippers on tap.
I prefer my room to your room.
Yeah, there you go.
I prefer my room to your room.
Totally fair. So do I.
Ken, first of all, someone in the room wanted to know what it feels like to be 63 years old. Fill me in.
Yeah, well, no, I'm okay. I'm open with my age. 48 today, feeling pretty young. Took a quick picture with Magic Johnson outside, feeling pretty magical here, and the pun was intended. It's a fun day. I'm not a person who's scared by numbers, and I'm looking forward to 50 when it comes. Hopefully it comes. And yeah, it's a fun place. I would love to be there, as you know. Unfortunately, our company travels quite a bit, and this is a good place to be if I couldn't be at home. Strange game, Sean. There were times where the Jets were fine. There were also times when they were clearly the second best team on the ice. Face-offs, it's funny. I understand there's a segment of the populations who are very high on the face-offs don't matter situation, and a lot of times they don't matter, but today they did matter. 2 clean losses led directly to goals for the Jets, and it basically hindered almost everything they wanted to do. If you fall behind against LA, they just simply don't give you much, and the fact the Jets were only able to score 1 time on the power play during the 5-minute major to Blake Lizotte, and they got nothing at 5-on-5, almost nothing at 5-on-5. So, I mean, they were clearly the second best team on the ice, and there was clear frustration from Pierre-Luc Dubois, from Rick Bowness, from Josh Morrissey, and even Dubois went so far as saying that this is a potential playoff matchup, and if that's how the Jets play in the playoffs, they're not going to be in the playoffs long. So it's an interesting time for sure. And oh, what a great shirt. What a great shirt. Amazing. Amazing. So I'm curious for your thoughts, because this was one game where the Jets didn't look fast in the game. The Kings play very structurally sound. When you score early and don't give up much, they're tough to beat. We were talking about this a lot this week, Sean. We knew this was a clear step up in terms of weight class for the Jets. To take nothing away from wins over the Arizona Coyotes or Anaheim Ducks, they were going to need to play better. And they did not play better today. So I'm very curious. I expect that they'll play fine against the San Jose Sharks, but I know it's ending up in the chat room here. It was another rough night or rough afternoon for not for Josh Morrissey, because he was very good. It was a rough one for Morrissey because of the stick he took in the face. Mark Scheifele, 8 games without a goal, and he 1 shot attempt. That's not enough. And I'm not pointing fingers at Mark saying he's the sole reason the Jets lost, because that's not the case, clearly. But this is a problem, Sean. We don't like to talk about plus minus because it's a flawed statistic. But one thing about plus minus, when you're a minus, you're on the ice for a lot of goals against. Minus 13 in an 8-game stretch where he has 0 goals scored. So for a guy that can be the biggest difference maker on this team when he's playing his best, it's not going well for Mark Scheifele right now, and it's a tough thing for the Winnipeg Jets to go through. And if Mark doesn't snap out of it in this last stretch, Sean, they'll be tough just to get into the playoffs, let alone try to do something if they arrive there.
Yeah, you know what? It's interesting because I find that usually you and I are on opposite ends of the sunny day meter. Like you usually have a sunnier look. I have a sunnier look than you
on the game.
And
boy,
entirely. And I do, because I understand Rick Bowness being upset, and I understand the idea and the mindset of a guy like Pierre-Luc Dubois, who has to say, look, we need to be better. This is a team we could play in the playoffs, and you want to be right there with a team like that. But let's be honest with ourselves. Where the Winnipeg Jets are coming from, that's not where they're at. This is not a team that has been competing to the level that you do against a team like the LA Kings. They're a team that has been duking it out shoulder to shoulder with teams that are below the playoff line, right? So this was, like you'd said, this is like going out and fighting flyweights and then stepping up to the heavyweight division. I would not be one bit surprised if the LA Kings end up first in the Western Conference. I would not be one bit surprised if this ends up being the first round matchup between the Winnipeg Jets and the LA Kings, right? This is why I say this. The last number of games here needs to be approached as a wind-up for the Winnipeg Jets, getting into a position where they can fix their game enough that they can compete with a team like this. I think, to be honest, from what we've seen from the Winnipeg Jets over the last little while, it's unfair to expect the Winnipeg Jets to come out and be at this level with this team. But I will say this. There was a number of times throughout this game that I do think the Winnipeg Jets were on the same level as the LA Kings. Now, the beginning of the game, clearly not. They were not ready to jump out of the gates the way that the LA Kings were. And the beginning of the third period, which was a real difference maker in this game where Drew Doughty gets that goal, they clearly weren't ready there at that point. When you're trying to cobble together a 60-minute game and you've been a team that's lucky to be playing a 10, 15-minute game for a long time now. I think building up to that 60-minute game, it doesn't go from 15 minutes to 60 and there you are. And I know a lot of people look at this Winnipeg Jets team and I get the same comments all the time, Ken. What's wrong with this team? How come this team isn't, just turning things on? Everyone talks about them flipping the switch. Ken, you've been the guy who's talked about this time and time again. That doesn't really exist. You don't just flip the switch. That doesn't happen. So I see the Winnipeg Jets and I see a team that has fallen off, but I see a team that is starting to turn things around and head in the right direction. And what I take away from this game is, yeah, they lost, and I'm sure they're upset about it, and they should be upset about it because they're competitors, and they need to believe that they can compete with a team like LA, and they better be believing that because there's a good chance they're going to be playing them in the playoffs. But what I saw from a team was plenty of spaces in that game to have hope that if you can continue that style play against that team, that you could pull off some games against that team. Was LA the better team here tonight? Yes, they were. Did LA show up and get things done at the most crucial points of the games? Yes, they did. The LA Kings are also a team that is absolutely on fire and has figured out a way to do this over the last little while. I see the Jets on a continuum right now, trying to get to that ability where they can be the best version of themselves to play the kind of hockey that the LA Kings are playing right now, because what we're seeing from the LA Kings is they are very close to the best version of themselves. But what I see from the Winnipeg Jets is a team that for large stretches of the game tonight hung with an LA Kings team that are very good and are the best version of themselves right now. And if I'm the Jets and I'm the Jets coaching staff, I look at this and I think there's enough there for me to believe that if we can pick up the other parts of our game that have been a little bit problematic, we can take a lot of what we had here, apply it going forward, and build and be ready for the playoffs, which I think should be the goal of this team.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not totally on board with where that. Sorry, I agree with what you're saying, the premise of it. I just think that the Kings were this reminded me of the Bruins game in a lot of ways. The Jets were kind of hanging around, but I didn't see them pushing back against LA. I saw them pushing back when Adam Lowry's line was on the ice. I thought the third line was the Jets' best line again this afternoon. They generated some opportunities and some zone time. I did see some times when the Dubois line, Niederreiter had another 5 shots on goal. Kyle Connor wasn't as dangerous, but I thought his wheels were moving again. But the Scheifele line had nothing going, and some people are saying, Ehlers isn't going. I think Ehlers is being dragged down right now because Mark Scheifele and Blake Wheeler are not generating the same magic that they had been able to do so in the past. Wheeler had a 5-shot game. Most of those shots were on the power play. Another penalty that proved to be a costly one, I guess, the one-handed trip in the neutral zone, and you saw the frustration when Wheeler went to the box. Were there some signs from the Jets? Yes, they didn't quit. They didn't give up. They worked hard. I think their compete level was fine, but I don't feel as though that this wasn't anywhere close to the template game. I didn't think the Jets were fast enough. They generated very little on the forecheck. They were unable to penetrate the 1-3-1. Now that causes a lot of patience to be had, and the Jets didn't exude a lot of patience for me in terms of their ability to try to break through the 1-3-1 with speed and to attack. But yeah, it's interesting, Sean. I'm not saying the Jets' season is over by any stretch of the imagination, but I'm not saying that. I'm saying that they need to be a lot better. No, I said I didn't think the season was over. I didn't say I did think the season was over. I just don't. I did not see the Jets play a strong game today. From in the building, it didn't feel like they were strong. Okay. And I'm not saying they should have gone from 0 to 60 here, Sean. That's not what I'm saying either.
That's the point that I'm trying to make here. Is like I think you're expecting too much. Like, do we honestly think that the Winnipeg Jets, from where they've fallen, we're just going to jump up and be like, all right, we're one of the best teams in the Western Conference now against a team that has proven night after night for a long time that they're there? Like, I'm taking this. I think I'm being a realist about this situation.
Sure.
The Winnipeg Jets have dropped off and have forgotten a good chunk of their game. They've basically taken the house and they've burnt it down to the foundation. And now what they're doing is they're trying to build the subfloor, and then they're trying to put up the walls, and then they're trying to put on the rafters, and they're trying to build the house back up. Did you seriously think that the Winnipeg Jets were going to come out here tonight and go blow for blow with the LA Kings the way they've been playing and walk out of this game with a 5-2 victory?
No, I did not. But I just thought that it was clear who the better team was this afternoon. And I understand that there's always two ways to look at these things, Sean. The Kings have points in 11 consecutive games. You're right. They are right now one of the best teams in the NHL. Yes, right now they're playing like one of the best teams in the NHL, and they looked like one of the best teams in the NHL. They had not played a game since Tuesday, where they had an emotional game. This is what we always hear, and we always have to parallel this with the Jets. Now, when we hear the Jets have a 4-day break, then they're not going to be sharp enough because there was too much time between games, and instead for the Jets. The Jets were the team that was in rhythm here. They had won 2 in a row. I would have expected them to have more jump, is all I'm saying. I didn't expect them to blow the doors off the Kings. And the fact they weren't blown out is important. And then they were in the game. I'm not saying they weren't in the game. I just didn't feel as though the Kings were feeling as though they were in any danger. After scoring early, I just felt that the Kings felt they were in control of this game. And part of the reason was because the Jets really only had 2 lines going out of the 4 again. And they can't afford to have that be the case when they're playing against that level of opponent. It's important for them. They obviously scored on the power play, which is something they haven't done very often of late. As we know, they snapped the 0 for 23 drought with the power play goal from Dubois. But with that 5-minute major, they needed more than one, Sean. That was their prime chance to get back into the game. They only got one, and the one came, I think, with 33 seconds left in the major penalties. So was there a step forward in some regards? Sure. But there are considerable more steps to take, Sean. The thing that I would be concerned about when it comes to the Jets is that they only have 8 games left. Is 8 games enough? This reminds me of the North Division season, Sean, without the 7-game losing streak at the end of it. Do they have enough time to get ready for game 1? Because you're right. Right now for the Jets, once they punch the ticket and get the X beside their name, all that matters is game 1, and it won't matter at all what happened in the 82 games. But 8 games, I don't know, is enough time for this team to get where it needs to be if they play against a team like LA or Vegas or Colorado, all of whom are playing excellent hockey right now.
Ken, I don't know if you caught it, but our good friend Elliot Friedman on his 32 Thoughts podcast absolutely attacked my character and my work ethic. I'm not sure if you heard about it.
I did hear about it. It was about the motivation. And what would have been funny?
About my motivation, yes.
Yes.
Here, I'm gonna give a log on his fire and say, like, I'm going to get the chat room to do my job. I just think this is a perfectly framed question here. To kind of talk about what we're talking about, I think we should continue this conversation. But AJ Jets back 11 says, Renny, they are not on the right track. And I'm not saying that, not for a second am I saying I see the Winnipeg Jets on a track and building towards being a contender with everybody else. I think, again, I want to say that I'm being a realist and that the Jets have been lost for a long time, and they're trying to find their way back.
Sure.
Now, do I look at the Jets and think they're showing every sign of getting in and sneaking in as the 8th seed, but being ready to walk through the number 1 seed and then the number 3 seed and then the number 2 seed on their way to a Stanley Cup final? I'm not saying that at all. I'm trying to be a realist and say if you're the Winnipeg Jets, you need to try and put yourself in a position to be a competitive team come playoffs. So I'll weigh in on this, but I want you to take this question. AJ Jetsback says, Renny, they are not on the right track. Are they on the right track?
I think it's hard to tell. I think the Jets have time to get back on the right track. I think there were times today where they showed that they can hang around for sure. I just didn't feel like they generated much. And I know Brass Balls Blake said the shot started 10-0 and ended 14-9. I don't think that many of the 9 shots Korpisalo faced in the first were dangerous. I didn't see the Jets sustaining much zone time at all. And outside of the power plays, I didn't see the Jets generate a whole lot, Sean, at 5-on-5. You don't expect them to generate a ton at 5-on-5, given how tough it has been for them to score goals of late. Structurally, they were pretty good. That's why I say, so there are positives in the game in this. The Jets did not make life all that difficult for Connor Hellebuck in this game because 2 of the goals were directly off face-off plays. So those aren't necessarily situations where there's blown coverage in zone like we've seen lately. This wasn't a puck management issue. They were 2 clean losses. Hellebuck, you could make the argument, should have had at least one of the 2, but and one of the other goals was power play, right? So the Jets didn't give up a ton 5-on-5 either. So, no, I mean, there's building blocks for them, but there's still a lot of room to build that is required. And until they get something going from Mark Scheifele, it's going to be tough for them. I just don't see a way around this, Sean. Mark, I thought, was one of their best players leading up to the Florida game, but since that time, things have gone south for him, and he needs to get it sorted out here. Otherwise, I don't think the Jets have much of a chance to get turned in the right direction.
I hear you. Ken, we got to digress, and I just got to say, you're looking like $1 million. I'm wearing this.
You recognize this tie, buddy? You recognize this tie?
I was going to go in that direction.
Buddy, I'm not with you today. But
what's happening behind me here?
Hey.
It's been called for. Let's make this
buddy.
a fun headband version of the Kenny and Renny show. Let's do it. Ken, just like it was last week, I think people are in awe of the makeup and hair team that runs in here while that video is playing and gets this look going. It's like an entirely different look. It is. They're on the payroll. They're on the Kenny and Renny payroll. It doesn't leave a lot left over for you and I, but some things are more important than than a bottom line. You know what I'm saying? I do have to say, I wanted to ask Tristan. Tristan, what does it feel like to have people sing your music? Because that's one of the cool things. Ben, when you came on, everyone is singing 2 holes in 1, right? Like everyone in the room is singing. Tristan, how cool does it feel when people are just belting out your tune? It's got to be awesome. There we go. He said it's good because he doesn't have to sing a thing. I love it. Timeless music that he's put together.
Tremendous.
And I wanted to give you a shout out. You're looking like $1 million. I'm wearing the.
That's nice. I love the support.
That, I think he turned 63 today. Whatever. Hey, if you're still relevant at 63, you got to be happy.
We're gonna do our best.
But you look like $1 million. You look like you've been down to see Frankie and the boys at Vittorio Rossi, no doubt. Head on down to Corden Avenue and see Frankie and the boys. Tell them Kenny and Renny sent you, and that way you'll end up the day looking like Kenny, like $1 million, and not like Renny, who looks like a reject from.
Hey, this
80s,
is. I have to tell you. So you
wore
wore my shirt and I wore your tie, buddy. We're always together, even when we're not in the same place.
I have been supplying Ken with ties because Frankie takes care of me very well, and I want to make sure I take care of my boy Ken. I wanted to say it was an early an early birthday present. That's my way of letting you know. Don't expect a birthday present coming forward here because there's nothing else coming in your direction.
I love it. I love it.
Lamplighter. What's your lamplighter this week, Kenny?
Yeah, I mean, it's got for me. It's the Dubois goal, and just because the Jets' power play has been such a bone of contention for them, Sean. It's fallen like a stone, to borrow your phrase. This was a team that had a top 10 power play briefly. Now it's in the bottom third of the NHL. Going into today, I think it was 22nd. And this goal was pure movement. Neil Pionk is out there because Morrissey's getting stitched up, gets the puck to Kyle Connor. Kyle Connor makes a great seam pass, And Pierre-Luc Dubois rips a shot past his former teammate Jonas Korpisalo, and it wasn't complex. It wasn't difficult. It was a straight line play, really sharp pass, and a good finish. And the Jets have overcomplicated things for probably over a month when it comes to their power play. And even to the point of frustration, Sean, where Rick Bowness started the second unit for that 5-minute major that transpired.
I thought that was a great move.
Well, they were generating. They had a shoot first mentality.
Yeah,
so
I thought it looked great. They just kept getting the puck to the net. There's confidence that you can go get the puck back. Like that. That's
right.
what I think you need to see. It's the old Wayne Gretzky. You miss 100% of the shots that you don't take. Right?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, in terms of backbreaker, the Doughty goal is absolutely the critical goal in this game, because the Jets went from having all the momentum after the second period to giving up another early blast. Right. So. Yeah, it was something that they really needed. And for Dubois, I've really liked him the last couple of games. He was very good against Nashville. The second game of the back-to-back against St. Louis looked like a guy who'd missed 8 of 9. And since that time, he's been pretty good. He was excellent against the Ducks the other night. And today, that line was very good again. So I thought it was important for them. And for Dubois hitting 25, we thought he would hit 30 easily this year, Sean, right? Based on the start that he had. Then he was hurt. He dipped a bit. But it's an important game. This reminds me of last season when there weren't a lot of people showing a lot of investment. For a lot of people who think that Pierre-Luc Dubois has one foot out the door, he shows a lot of investment, both in the games in terms of his physical play and about the frustration level he showed after the game today. And I know some folks don't care about the interviews or whatever else, but this was a guy that was legitimately... Mike McIntyre was sitting beside me. He said Dubois sounded downtrodden after the game, which is surprising. That's not how he tilts in terms of his personality generally, and he was very frustrated with what was happening. And it'll be interesting to see how the Jets respond here. They can't afford to lay an egg. They've got an extra day off here, Sean, in California before the game on Tuesday. We know San Jose has gone through an absolutely horrendous stretch on the ice of late. Only 2 wins in, I think, 16 games or something like that. And one of those wins is against the Jets. And I didn't see it, Sean, but I know you had the pregame show up. Rick Bowness really said, "We'll see," when Dan Robertson asked if Hellebuck was going to play the remaining games.
Well, I mean, don't you think he'd said as much earlier on? Like, to me, that's the news that we've been dealing with for a long time. He's basically said that he's going to play it the way he feels that they need to play it. Now, my thoughts on this,
right.
And I think that you're potentially overplaying the guy. But if we're in a situation where because this is the one thing, everyone knows how I feel. I think the Winnipeg Jets are making the playoffs. I'm not at all worried about it. Yep. The fact of the matter is they have to make up 5 points. But if down the stretch they make up 2 points and then a single point there, the looming specter in all of this is that the Calgary Flames play the Winnipeg Jets one last time. If they can take that game, that can be all the difference, right? The Jets win that game. It's a 4-point game. They're 2 points down. It's probably game over. But if they keep themselves relevant and they beat the Jets, that could be all the difference in the world. So what we see down the stretch, I do know this. I don't think I think they're more willing to live with Connor Hellebuck letting in a bad goal than they are to live with David Riddick letting in a bad goal. You're in that position where the Jets have absolutely put themselves. What is that?
Sorry, it's my little nephew there, Dorian, saying hello from Arizona here, Sean. So little shout out there. Good stuff.
They put themselves in a position, Ken, where they have to go into a win everything mode.
Sure.
And that means you go to Connor Hellebuck. When you've got the best goaltender in the game or one of the best goaltenders in the game, you kind of have to go down that
and I definitely expected him Tuesday against San Jose because of the time in between games. So that's no surprise.
I just wanted to respond to you for the Pierre-Luc Dubois comment and him being upset after the game. But before I do that, I just wanted to say that's Kenny's lamplighter of the night. I don't disagree. But we want to hear from you. What's your lamplighter of the night? Share that with us, and you're automatically entered to win a frosty, delicious 8-pack of Lamplighter Amber Ale, brought to you by our friends at TransCanada Brewing Company. If you can't wait for Kenny and Renny to gift you one of those or to win one in the chat room, head on down to TransCanada Brewing Company. Join them in their tap room at 11290 Kenniston, where we are all having a great time here today. And I'll say this, we've handed out a couple 8-packs here.
Nice.
And if anyone thought that Renny was biased and was just randomly handing these out to people that he preferred, he will got one, okay? The random number generator lands where the random number generator gonna land. And if I could have stopped it from landing on T-Will, I would have done it. That, if you were ever looking for the idea that Renny follows the rules, well, the fact that T-Will, who trashes Renny like no one, walks out of this room after I had to, with the acid in my mouth, I had to hand over the Frosty Delicious 8-pack of Lamplighter Amber Ale.
Who's the winner?
Everything's on the up and up with the Kenny and Renny show, no doubt.
Beautiful. Do you got the winner? Let's
go.
do the winner right now.
Oh, geez. You sent it to me. I'll do it after the Johnston Group got you covered.
Oh, okay, buddy. Johnson Group got you covered. Play of the game belongs to Mason Appleton for going at Blake Lizotte after the absolutely absurd and ridiculous cross-check to the face of Josh Morrissey from Blake Lizotte. It's one I can still not understand, Sean. I can't understand that being the reaction. Yes, they were jostling and tussling on the way down the ice. Josh gave him a love tap on the shin pads, and the response was to cross-check. Blake Lizotte's not a dirty player. Josh Morrissey is not a dirty player. Those two, I cannot imagine that they had any history. LA was in complete control of the game, and Lizotte cross-checks him in the face for 10 zippers on the outside of his chin and 7 or 8 on the inside of his mouth. I am blown away by his reaction on that play. And he's incredibly lucky. Sean, this was a Josh Archibald special. This should have allowed the Jets to get back and win the game like they did against the Edmonton Oilers. Instead, they only get one, and that's how the game basically ends for them. But Mason Appleton quick to jump back in for his fallen opponent, or his fallen teammate, who was bleeding still after the game, even though he was stitched up. So that action by Mason Appleton is the We've Got You Covered play of the game, sponsored by the OGs, the good folks at the Johnston Group.
That's an absolutely apt assignment that you made there, Ken. And I wanted to give a shout out to our friends from the Johnston Group. You won't find 2 businesses with the same challenges, but you will find 30,000 businesses with Chambers Plan employee benefits, proudly administered by our friends at Johnston Group. Chambers Plan is Canada's #1 plan for employee benefits because it evolves with the way you work and live. The plan is run as a not-for-profit designed specifically to support small businesses, and its unique pooling strategy keeps rates stable, so you won't have any surprises at your next renewal. Chambers Plan now comes with professional consulting on key financial, legal, and HR issues, and Teladoc telemedicine services are included with every health option. See how Chambers Plan can benefit your business by visiting chamberplan.ca. And just a massive shout out to our Kenny and Renny OGs at the Johnston Group. We asked the boys to come down here today. I know they're busy. I know they have young ones, but we're going to get them out here one time, Ken, and show them just how much.
Year-end party. They'll be there. They'll be there at the wind-up.
You bet, at the year-end party, which I've been pumping here. It's going to be
good.
Year-end party. People will get to know about it. They're excited about it, no doubt. I wanted to weigh in on Pierre-Luc Dubois being upset after the game. This is what I like about this. I like the idea that the Jets are upset that they feel like tonight they didn't show up enough to compete with the LA Kings, right? I like that idea. It's the mindset that you have to have. It's another one of the reasons that I take a look at this game and I think, I'm not saying that this game is a sign that the Winnipeg Jets are going to be ready for the playoffs. But I do think that it's a sign of them heading in the direction, a sign of them not being happy that for stretches of the game they hung with the LA Kings. They wanted to win this game. The Jets came into, I think this was a bit of a wake-up call for the Jets. They came off those last 2 games. They played teams below the playoff lines. I think they told themselves, you know what, the Arizona Coyotes have been playing really good hockey lately, and we beat them. So that says a lot about where we are, right? And we've heard Rick Bowness talk about these teams that come in and play loose, and it's a good way to sell it, right? Yeah, these teams are below the playoff level, but they're playing loose, and to beat them is an accomplishment, right? When the fact of the matter is bad teams they're bad teams, right? No matter how good the Arizona Coyotes are playing as of late, there's flaws that exist with that team that mean they didn't make the playoffs, and the Jets were able to exploit flaws in that team that aren't going to be there in teams that are above the playoff line, right? But I think the Jets, after winning 2 straight games, wanted to come in and say, this isn't a fluke. Yes, we beat these last 2 teams, but we've got something going on here. We're turning things around here. And this is a wake-up call against the LA Kings, where the game that they had, which I think was a better played game than the game that they played against Anaheim, and a better played game than the game that they played against Arizona, was not good enough to get past this team here. But I think it's good. I think the Winnipeg Jets walk into this because what's their schedule going forward here, Ken? They've got to play the San Jose Sharks after this, and then they walk out of playing them.
Devils.
So we're walking back into a situation here where they're playing teams below the playoff line again, right? This is one that they wanted to lock in and maybe go and win a 4th game after that and say, yeah, we're playing teams below the playoff line. And we know the Jets have one of the easier schedules down the stretch in the entire NHL. So it will be hard for them to jump over that line, right? I get the idea of wanting to make sure in the games that you do have left against upper echelon talent that you show that you're with them. But I like the idea that they're upset that they didn't get there. I like Pierre-Luc Dubois' response. I know you thought like it's strange that he's frustrated. I think he's frustrated because this is a reminder of where the Winnipeg Jets are and where they need to get to. But in the end, I think a harsh reminder like this is something that will serve them well.
Yeah, it could for sure. Schedule remaining 8 games. San Jose Sharks, Detroit Red Wings. Then it's a tougher stretch for them in order to try to lock things down. New Jersey Devils, Calgary Flames, Nashville Predators. That leaves 3 games for the final week of the regular season. That's another game at home against the San Jose Sharks, 1 on the road against the Minnesota Wild, and then they close out against the Colorado Avalanche. So 1, 2, 3 playoff teams out of the last 8 games here, as long as they stay ahead of the Calgary Flames and Nashville Predators up until that point. So there is time, as we mentioned, to get things sorted out. I thought they played better against Anaheim than today, but I wouldn't say by a considerable margin, but it's also would have been easier to generate against Anaheim because they play a wide open game and don't defend well, and the Kings lock things down and make things very difficult.
Hold on, before you go explain yourself, how were the Winnipeg Jets a better team against Anaheim in a 3-2 victory than they were against the Kings in essentially a 3-1 loss?
I mean, they weren't perfect against Anaheim because they let the Ducks hang around. But in terms of their quality of play, freely moving the puck up the ice, I thought they generated more opportunities.
Freely moving the puck against a team that didn't show up for the first 2 periods.
I guess. I mean, I just thought that we know that the quality opponent is way different. It's one team near the top and one team near the very bottom. I understand that. I just thought that the Jets skated better against Anaheim. Because then that's natural because the ice wasn't clogged up against Anaheim. They don't play a 1-2-2 or 1-3-1. So, yeah, I just thought that they were a little bit crisper the other day. And I understand it's easier to be crisper when you're playing against a team that doesn't defend well. So we know that about the Jets. They love playing teams that don't defend well because it allows them to open things up. But I thought the Jets the other day did a good job of not getting into snake charmer mode against a team that occasionally would allow you to be a little bit more creative. Today, I thought their puck management was pretty good. That's something that they've struggled with against the Kings at times, is turning the puck over in bad areas. But once again, I thought Phil Deneau was absolutely dynamite in this game. Sean, his pass to the back door for the tap-in goal was incredibly high-end. But part of the reason Mark Scheifele struggled today is because Phil Deneau wore him like a blanket when he played up against him. And that's what Mark Scheifele is going to be up against during the playoffs if they're in, right? Same as Ryan O'Reilly in 2019. So they're going to need a little bit more on that front. What it's obvious, but what was your reaction to the cross-check? And I understand it was so far behind the play, there weren't a lot of good angles on it.
I mean, what's their reaction to have? It's a cheap
what is
shot.
he doing? What is he doing? That's a nothing burger slash on the shin pads.
Yeah, no, it doesn't make sense to me. I mean, other than the idea, I guess you're. I don't know. I don't think there's. I think, to be honest, I don't want to make too much out of it. Like, I think it's one of these plays that it just happens in the game. A guy gets frustrated and he pops the guy. I don't want to think that there's a message to be sent there down the line and saying this is a team that we're going to see in the playoffs potentially at some point, and we want to send a message. I don't think it's anything like that. I just think it's a stupid play. But it's a larger conversation. I had it with some of the people in the dressing room. Not the dressing room. Feels like a dressing room.
Sure.
I had it with some of the people in here tonight. But
it's the new Kenny and Renny dressing room, no doubt.
You and I have had a conversation about this, and I had a conversation at the GM meetings. I know where they're trying to get with the no fighting after a clean hit situation. But we talked about this situation when you create an NHL where no one fights or you get penalized for fights after a clean hit. I think the obvious place to go after that is to send your guys to hit the best players on the other team as much as you possibly can. And it takes away the ability for players to kind of police themselves and keep your hands off those guys. And I just think that I don't want an NHL where guys get to take shots at the absolute best players on the other team. And this is one of those things. I don't want a culture. I want a culture in the NHL where there's a feeling that Josh Morrissey, here's a guy who could potentially be the Norris Trophy winner. I don't want players feeling like they can take a pop at that guy in the middle of a game for a nothing burger reason, as you're talking about. That's not what I want. I want guys to feel like there's ramifications for doing something like that. And this is the one concern that I have. And I feel like I'm on a bit of an island here, to be honest with you. I was down at the GM meetings. I asked questions based on this. I don't think the majority of the reporters across the NHL are with me on this. We haven't talked about it enough for me to understand where you feel about this. But I think an NHL where Blake Lizotte feels like he can go against the guy who is maybe going to be the best defenseman, win the award as the best defenseman in the league this year, and just pop him for 10 stitches on the outside and however many on the inside.
Yeah, 8.
I'm not a big fan of the NHL that allows a player to feel like that's something he can do without retribution or that he can get away with. And so, I mean, this is a deep conversation that we're getting into. I just hate the idea that kind of stuff can happen and that there's not a lot in the way of ramifications.
Yeah, and he went out of his way. Like, he had already gone into the zone and then turned around and skated full speed at him, which I thought was absolutely absurd and ridiculous. So I'm with you completely. That no player should feel like that. They're willing to do that without any ramifications. There has to be a suspension. We know there was only one game for Greer on Hoffman. That's also probably ridiculous. Josh Morrissey's lucky, and he said it himself. He's lucky he didn't lose any chiclets on that play, and it was only and I don't say only stitches to minimize it. He's lucky that it was only stitches and not teeth, but still, it's just an absolutely ridiculous thing. And sorry, by the way, you forgot to hand out the lamplighter.
Yes. Okay.
Man, the crowd is riled up. I was trying to be helpful. I wasn't trying to get some shots handled.
Listen,
shots fired in your direction. What's the deal here?
Every once in a while, I like to take and pull the pin on the grenade and throw it into the middle of the crowd. And I'm going to do that right now.
I love it.
Pull the pin and toss it.
Do it.
That Maul.
It's time.
Maul has won the lamplighter.
Let's go. Claim your prize. Claim your prize, Maul.
And I hope Maul knows that they've got cameras down at the front desk. And we will be monitoring those cameras to see who comes and claims. Well, never mind. Before that, Maul.
Hey, give Maul some airtime if he wants to come down. The mic is open, Maul.
The mic is open.
Challenge accepted.
I'm fairly certain that Maul is sitting at home and pretending that he's in this
room. Boy.
I know that some of our people here thought that he was sitting at a table right beside him.
Okay.
We've debunked that theory.
Okay.
So, Maul, here's what you got to do. You got to direct message Renny at SN Sean Reynolds, and you have to send me your... That's two. That's two.
2 strikes, Reynolds. 2 strikes.
And you have to send me your email, and I will send you a voucher for a Frosty Delicious 8-pack of Lamplighter Amber Ale, brought to you by our friends from Transcanada Brewing Company. Something tells me Maul is not going to send me that information, but we'll see. We'll see what happens.
You think he's going to have someone else claim it for him?
Yeah, well, no, because he has to send me his name. It's going to be under.
But you're not.
There we go. Okay. Hey, I wanted to make sure I made a point here.
Yeah.
When I'm talking about this, because there's going to be people out there who's going to listen to what I said about Josh Morrissey taking that cross check. And I'm going to bring it up because I had this conversation earlier on here. I want to make sure people don't think that I'm just saying this because this happened to a Winnipeg Jet player. The example I used before this was the Saku Menelainen hit on Connor McDavid, in which I believe, and I've said this before on the podcast, but I talked about this in the room, Saku Menelainen, when he goes to hit Connor McDavid in that situation, is going to hit him, and I think that he sticks out his left leg in a situation to try and mete out a little bit of extra punishment to Connor McDavid in that situation. Connor McDavid gets hit, he goes down to the ice. Now, the way the NHL wants that play handled is to say, we think it's a clean hit, so you better leave it alone. If you don't leave it alone, and if you're trying to get retribution for your guy, like Darnell Nurse did, you're going to get the instigator penalty. So Darnell Nurse goes for his pound of flesh with Saku Menelainen. Saku Menelainen doesn't engage. Lowry steps in. There's a fight. Nurse gets the extra 2 minutes. The Jets score the game-winning goal on that power play. That's how the NHL wants to handle it. They want to handle that situation so that the Oilers are punished in that situation for trying to protect Connor McDavid. And listen, to take off your blue and red and white goggles or whatever you want to do out there, I'm not sure I want an NHL in which the Saku Menelainens of the world are running around trying to take their pound of flesh out of Connor McDavid over and over and over again under the new rules, with an understanding that guys like Darnell Nurse better choose their poison. Either you protect your guy or you end up in the box and potentially lose the game. I say that because I want to bring that situation, which Jets fans will say, you don't know what you're talking about, you're an idiot. And I want to take that and apply that to what we had tonight. I don't want an NHL in which Blake Lizotte is cross-checking Josh Morrissey in the face and trying to take a potential defenseman of the year out of the game. Like, I'm a big believer in protecting your stars, okay? And I'm also a big believer in the NHL policing itself and making sure that you can go out of your way, whether you agree with the call of the refs or not, to make sure that your stars are safe. And I just think, and I wanted to put it out there, and you can believe with me if you want. You can believe me if you want. You can side with me if you want. But I just gave you a situation that was beneficial to the Jets and a situation that was not beneficial to the Jets. I think they need to leave space in the game for players to make sure that they are protecting the people they feel need to be protected, because on an entirely even system, the stars are the ones that are going to get targeted if you're just leaving it up to the refs to take care of it. And I think tonight's an example of how it worked against the Jets.
Yep, no, fair enough. Before we get to the top, let's do a quick Lou Ferlin firing here. You grab the brand there for the folks who have realty needs that they'd like to have met. Whether you're buying, whether you're selling, whether you're looking for what that house on the corner is worth, or if you're looking to move to another neighborhood, you can contact our main man, Lou Ferlin, at Royal LePage Dynamic Realty, 204-791-9971, or at the office, 204-989-5000. His email is lou@louferlin.ca. That's LOU@LOUFURLAN.ca, and his website with all his listings is www.louferlin.ca. Lou Ferlin, excellent realtor, excellent human being, and excellent supporter of the community, including this podcast, for which we are very grateful.
Absolutely love Sweet Lou. Okay, I wanted to bring it back to this. I was having this conversation earlier on tonight, and you were talking about the idea of Mark Scheifele, the Blake Wheeler line, and the fact that they're holding back Nick Ehlers. You know who wasn't holding back Nick Ehlers when they were playing with him was Blake Wheeler alongside Vladislav Nemesnikov. And this brings me back to the idea that I talked about on this show of developing a three-line team. And I know that you and I didn't land on the right side of this. But the one thing about this that I think is interesting, and I had some conversations in this room here tonight, Nemesnikov and Blake Wheeler and Nikolai Ehlers worked They were a good line.
Yep.
And we talked about what they were going to do and the kind of fantasy idea of what they could do. But I think what we knew was going to happen was Nemesnikov was going to get moved back down.
Right.
But Vladislav Nemesnikov was a difference maker on this team a little while ago when they were playing their best hockey against some really good teams. And they broke up that line after Pierre-Luc Dubois got back. I don't like that. I don't like that idea at all. I go back to what I was talking about pairings-wise. But I guess I ask you this. Rick Bowness is a guy who's called out a lot of stuff. We've had conversations about what he's done this last week. But I will say this. He went back to a number of pairings that we've seen before, not pairings, but lines that have worked at times and haven't worked at times. I have to say, I think that he went out and he broke up a line that was working to force feed a top six that hasn't been working in the past, and we're trying to figure out a way to make it work. I think it's problematic that he took apart a line that was working and working in a way that he wants them to play that specific style of game in order to get Pierre-Luc Dubois back into a spot where he wanted him. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, right now my thoughts are the Jets' best line is the Adam Lowry line and Nemesnikov's on it. However, I think that you could make the switch from Barron to Nemesnikov fairly easily and not have a drop-off. I think they can play at an equal level, and I think in order to get Nikolai Ehlers going again, I think having Nemesnikov with him makes some sense. Now that means you're shifting into pairs instead of lines, and then you're back with having Adam Lowry as the fourth-line center, which I don't agree with. But you can find somewhere to play Mark Scheifele that he can be effective. There's no doubt about that. Do I think Wheeler was driving that line? His passing was excellent on it, for sure. But right now, Blake's going through a tough time too, Sean. So would I consider putting Nemesnikov with Scheifele and Ehlers? Even if it's for a shift or two here and there, yes. But that basically means you have to put Blake Wheeler on the third line or lower, which I wrote about this in my mailbag, Sean. I've thought for years that Lowry and Wheeler could be effective together. I understand that he doesn't have the same speed as Mason Appleton, and maybe you could put Appleton on the left side, or maybe you could have Barron, Wheeler, and Lowry as a line. But now you're asking Blake to defend against the fastest and most skilled players on the opposition. So is that something the Jets want to consider? They might. Now, the interesting thing for me, Sean, when Cole Perfetti comes back, then do you consider Perfetti and Wheeler in a similar role to the Brian Little line from 2018? Sometimes they were the third line when the Jets were needing offense. Sometimes they were the fourth line when they were defending. But who's at center? Is it Gustafsson? Is it Stenlund? Is it Scheifele even? And then you're changing some other things around. That's a long-winded way of saying, would I be in favor of putting Nemesnikov back with Ehlers? Yes. Am I sure that it's with Wheeler and not with Scheifele? No, I'm not sure about that. But what we know is it's in flux. And right now, much like Rick Bowness talked about on the pregame show with Paul Edmonds today, Sean, the Jets still don't know who their sixth defenseman is, and it's going to be game 74 or 73 on Tuesday. I think Dylan Samberg was steady today. I would leave him in the lineup, but Rick seemed to be leaving the door open for both Kyle Capobianco and Logan Stanley still being in the mix for that sixth spot, though I personally think that Dylan Samberg is ahead of him. So in terms of the lines and shaking it up a bit, I think the Jets are still looking for answers. And I don't know what those answers are, and I don't think Rick Bowness knows those answers are. And until he gets a full investment from Mark Scheifele, then I don't think he will know until he gets better play from Scheifele.
Ken, I would like to make this show go long, but
it's okay.
As people have noted and asked how many beers that I've had, I need to pee, so I'm going to have to shut this thing down. Sorry. Sorry. We went an hour.
First time in documented history that you went and I didn't have to go and you did.
I've been through this for like 55 minutes, okay? So
Well done. I appreciate you going the extra mile.
People are offering me birthday beers for you, and Ken, I hate
nice.
to say it,
You should accept. I would say you should
Before
accept.
I do that, we have to hand out our award for the home field dig deeper, and I'm slacking on this side over here, so I just need to bring up our read for a second here. But I do know that the winner of that award has already been selected, and I do have to say it's time to throw a spotlight on the comments and choose a standout for the Home Field Dig Deeper Award, and that is going to be AJ Jetsback, who challenged us by saying, Renny, they are not on the right track. It brought up an interesting conversation. I like this conversation because I think that this is the conversation going forward from what we're seeing from the Winnipeg Jets. The Winnipeg Jets are not as bad as that team that was absolutely lost in the middle of February, but they're not as good as the team that we saw earlier on in the year. We know that in the continuum of what they possibly could be, they're somewhere in the middle of that. We don't know where they are, and we don't know how far along they are towards being that competitive team in the playoffs. I can tell you this. I'll tell you this, Ken. I know this. From watching this room tonight and watching Jets fans, there's frustration until they score that goal and start getting back into the game. And then I see it time and time again. There's a strong belief that this core has potential to do something. And I hear the line over and over again, flip the switch, flip the switch, flip the switch. I know you don't believe in flipping the switch, but I do understand the idea that people feel this team is capable of doing something, and AJ Jetsback 11 brings up an interesting conversation along the lines of saying, where are they in the process of getting to what we know that they possibly can be? Tonight, they clearly are not there yet, but I do contend that based on how they played tonight, they are further along than what we saw them in January. The question is, how far along the line are they to competing in the playoffs? You know my thoughts. I think they're going to be there, but when they get there, are they going to be capable? That's a big question, and I love the idea that AJ Jetsback started that conversation. So thank you, AJ Jetsback, for your winning comment. And just like AJ Jetsback 11, Home Field is always going to dig deeper to find the best marketing solution for your company. Find out how at myhomefield.ca. And AJ Jetsback, you know what to do. You just have to direct message me at SN Sean Reynolds. Send me your full name and send me your email, and I will send you your voucher for your very own Kenny and Renny /Home Field trunk shovel. It's a beauty. I don't know what you do with it in the summertime. It's more of a, I don't know.
You could use it around the garden. You could use it around the garden.
Use
probably.
it around the garden. I don't know. Or
hey, no.
Like some people have done, hang it on the wall. It's like a trophy. This is
yes.
You just got the best comment in the middle of a Kenny and Renny show. You should hold that thing above your head. Head down to True North Square. Pump it over your head. Whatever you got to do, you did it.
Selfies with the Howard Chuck statue. There you go. Here's a new way to do it.
Kenny, you rocked it as usual. Chat room, you rocked it as usual. But I got to say, this room here tonight was absolutely phenomenal. I seriously, I want to thank all of you for coming out here tonight. This was a ton of fun. We really appreciate all that. You know, this is our 4th show. And all the people who've come out to support us, it means the world to us. It honestly does. It's an opportunity for us to sit down. I hope all of you felt like you were seen here tonight, and that I gave my goal here tonight was to make sure that I spent time with all of you, because I feel like you all come and spend time with us every time you do this. It means the world to Kenny and I. So thank you for that. And I want to end this by saying, as I always do, if you appreciate the conversations happening in these spaces, please appreciate the contributions by our sponsors who fight to keep these conversations going in these spaces. For us, that's Vittorio Rossi, TransCanada Brewing Company, the Johnson Group, Lou Ferlin, and of course, Home Field. Thank you so much, everybody. We will be chatting with you after the next game. Happy birthday, Kenny. 63 never looked so good, my friend. We will talk to you later. Safe travels as you head up to San Jose for the next game. Bye-bye, everybody.
The Kenny and Renny Show is brought to you by Home Field, Cambrian Credit Union, Lou Ferlin, TransCanada Brewing, Vittorio Rossi, and Johnston Group.